that's been some of the epidemiological data, has definitely suggested that one of the big risk factors for brain atrophy and a risk factor for developing dementia is physical inactivity. That
Really?
a reasonable percentage of dementia that we see today might be linked with a physically inactive lifestyle.
Hey, everybody. We've had some of the most incredible guests coming to you these past couple of months. The amount of expertise and knowledge on these cutting edge topics is something we really hope that you enjoy. And if you do, it would make a huge difference to us if you could rate, review, and subscribe the podcast. It helps us to get more guests, better experts, and talk about all of the things that are really important to you. So give us a love, give us a lot of love, and don't forget to subscribe so you get all our new episodes. Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Rachel, and I have a very special guest for you here today is David Raichlen, who is a biological anthropologist. Don't get scared yet. Don't freak out. Don't okay, if I'm not a scientist, I can't listen here, because his work is so relevant to you right now, your fitness journey, and all of your whys as to why work out and what's the point. So, David, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.
You know, I was first introduced to your work in an interview you were giving, talking about the importance of exercise, and it was, I realized later, the first time that I heard someone talk about the importance of exercise and not mention fat loss.
Yeah.
And
It's
it was so refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it really I think about exercise and physical activity as really about health. And, it's probably not the best way to manage weight loss or obesity. That it's actually really challenging to use exercise as your sort of sole method of dealing with weight loss or trying to lose weight. Our bodies are just really good at sort of fighting off weight loss, and that it's really deeply rooted in our evolutionary history of why it's so hard to lose weight. It's not it's a bummer, but it's not a surprise. And so I think I try to, when I talk about exercise and physical activity, I try to make the point that it really is. It's essential for maintaining health. It's essential for living a long life. It's essential for preventing chronic disease. Um, and that's the reason to do it. The reason to do it is not to lose weight.
Let's go. Just that's everything. That is everything that this podcast is about, is, busting up this aesthetic. I have to get to the gym to punish myself. I have to get to the gym to burn these calories. I have to it's it's such a refreshing take to just hear it back on the track of, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Your body needs this, and it's for your health and longevity. And so your work, because I want to really introduce our listeners into the really cutting edge stuff that you're doing, because you're bridging evolutionary psychology, biomechanics, and neuroscience. And you're using that to see how physical activity shaped us from way back when, all the way through human lineage, and then how our increasingly sedentary lifestyles of today are contributing to some of the more chronic diseases. And this work, I think, is really mind blowing when you hear about why our bodies need exercise so bad.
Well, thank you. That's really nice to hear you put it that way, and I appreciate it. And I do think about our work as and the research that we do, and the research that my colleagues do, is really giving us or trying to give answers to that why question. Not only why is physical activity and exercise so important, but why is it so hard to motivate sometimes? Why is it so hard to to just get out the door? And why is it so frustratingly difficult to use exercise and physical activity to lose weight? All those questions, we, you know, we can try to answer using evolutionary biology, but I also, and I think this is something, just building off of what you all do with your podcast, it's something that hopefully helps people kind of take some of the pressure off themselves. That there are really good reasons to be physically active, and you can take some of the pressure off of yourself of maybe why is it so hard sometimes to get out the door, and why is it not working for me the way I think it should work because I'm seeing all these people on Instagram, doing what they're doing. And I hope that our evolutionary context takes the pressure off a little bit and lets people kind of embrace physical activity, as something that can make you feel good. And that, to me, that's the whole reason to do it. And some of the earliest work that I did, kind of as I started to get into this evolutionary biology of activity world, was really about, why does exercise make us feel happy sometimes, and can we use that? Can we use those mechanisms to make exercise and physical activity a habit, right? Because we know that if you enjoy something, you're likely to do it. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it. And so, if we want to encourage people to be physically active, we need to help it be an enjoyable activity, right?
Yes, yes, and yes. And so much of what we talk to women about in the podcast is that exercising because you hate your body is going to be a short lived kind of activity. There is
Absolutely.
not going to be a longevity for doing something because you hate something to get this to go away. And instead, because you love yourself, what you hit on something that I have a real is the happy feeling
Yeah.
that comes with exercise. Is that an evolutionary kind of mechanism that we've developed to try and make sure that the body is getting the physical activity that it so needs?
It's a great question. It's a question that was sort of one of my starting points in this area, was trying to get at that, trying to get at an answer. I can't give you a perfect answer, but what I can say is that, a lot of the reasons why physical activity and exercise make us feel good has to do with, neurochemical, upregulation. So, we upregulate a suite of neurochemicals during activity. Some everybody's heard of, like endorphins, and people talk about the runner's high and those kinds of things. Another group, the molecules that I have done a lot of work on, are endocannabinoids. So they're our body's form of the active ingredient in marijuana. And those are upregulated during exercise and physical activity, and dopamine's upregulated during physical activity. So we know a lot about those mechanisms. Did they evolve as a reward for exercise? That's a more difficult question to answer, because there's another possibility that I think about a lot, which is that these same, molecules that make us feel good also act as analgesics. They're like natural pain relievers. So, endorphins and endocannabinoids, when they're circulating peripherally, are pain relievers. And so it's very possible that, that evolutionary mechanism might have been to reduce, minor pain associated with being active, and that as a byproduct we get these good feelings. Or it's possible that the good feelings are the selection pressure, and that's why these molecules are upregulated during exercise from an evolutionary perspective. I, I started to decide it doesn't actually matter.
I was going to say
What
I'm
matters
good
is that
either
we
way.
feel good. Yeah, and we can, we can use that in our personal sort of lives, because not everybody gets the same feeling from the same kind of exercise. That's another sort of take home message from this whole line of research, not just mine, but from tons of people who work in this area. And so, for people who, like, I love running. That's me. That's what I just enjoy it. When I don't run, I'm not in a good mood. That's where I get that excitement. I know a lot of people who hate running. They do it because they feel like they have to, but yeah, but it doesn't make them happy all day. Like, it makes me happy all day. But there are other things that then make you happy. I don't know what if it's whatever it is, if it's going to the gym and lifting weights, if it's swimming, if it's playing tennis, whatever it is, that finding that activity that you start to rely on for your mental health, that's what's going to form the habit, the lifelong habit, right?
Right.
And I think that's what is kind of an enduring concept from this research, is find that activity that makes you feel happy all day, because you'll do it. If you find it, you'll do it.
And it's out there. I
It's
I
out there.
love that. Um, I have been a person that prior to some of this newer research have considered the brain as sort of a not controllable organ. Like you can work your muscles, they can get bigger.
Mm,
But your brain is just sort of hanging out there and it is what it is. And you kind of don't have any real sense of control over it, because it seems to be one of those things where we just kind of accept it is what it is.
mm,
And it stops growing at a certain point.
mm.
Recently, we have been doing a lot of work with neuroplasticity with my son, with an ADHD diagnosis. And the amount that I have learned about how long your brain remains in that state of being able to change and grow and learn was astounding.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask you, as the expert, convince our audience that their brain, no matter what age they are currently, can grow and change.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's been, you're hitting on something that neuroscientists thought for decades, which is that, once you basically get into early adulthood, you can't grow any more new neurons in your brain. And you're really kind of set. And from that point on, it's just managing shrinkage over the rest of your life.
Right.
Uh,
What a
you
goal.
in the 90s, these are data from rodent experiments, people started to find that actually there were some techniques that were developed where you could actually label and see new neurons growing in brains in rodents. And neuroscientists found that actually in the adult, at least rodent brain, you do see new neurons growing. And to me, one of the most astounding set of studies was done in the late 90s down in San Diego, out of a guy named Fred Gage, who's a really amazing neuroscientist. And his work and the work of his postdocs showed that one of the most effective ways to increase what's called neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons, was by giving a mouse access to a running wheel. So if you let a mouse run on a running wheel, it effectively grows new neurons in a really specific part of the brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is associated with memory, with spatial navigation, and it's one of the structures in the brain of humans that when you start to see neurodegeneration, like in the context of Alzheimer's disease, it's one of the areas that starts to atrophy really early, and it has really profound effects on thinking and memory. And so it's been sort of the last 30, 20, 25 years, whatever, or 25 to 30 years of work in this area is finding that and realizing that exercise and physical activity can impact the functioning of the brain, specifically the hippocampus. And I think there are some really good evolutionary reasons for that you know, one of the big shifts that happened across our evolutionary history was we became a hunting and gathering species about 2 million years ago. Of course, nowadays there are not many humans that still practice that lifestyle, but it was for almost 2 million years, it was what every human on Earth did. And they spent their day being highly physically active, walking, 18,000 steps a day, and trying to search for food. And what do you need to do at that point? At that point, when you're out being physically active, you're activating your hippocampus. You're using spatial navigation. You're using memory to find areas that are important for foraging, et cetera. And so our work in sort of the evolutionary side of this has been kind of trying to understand that those linkages between the brain and body probably have a very long evolutionary history as well. That physical activity, altering the brain, makes good sense when you think about why we're generally physically active in a more sort of ecologically relevant context, aside from going to the gym or something like that. So I think that's been, it's had sort of a profound impact on the way I think about aging and the aging brain, and what can we actually do to alter the trajectory of our cognition as we get older.
Wow. I just the consideration that simply the introduction of a running wheel would grow a specific part of the brain is just, to me, that's wild. It's wild, it's not wild, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is all working together. And we know that nothing works in a vacuum. No organ is just out there by itself on, but it's just, that link is really powerful. And I wanted to ask you, if we are growing parts of our brain, and I want to get into the memory aspect and the intense work you're doing with dementia, but if we are growing parts of our brain with exercise, if we are not exercising, are we losing it?
I mean, that's been some of the epidemiological data, has definitely suggested that one of the big risk factors for brain atrophy and a risk factor for developing dementia is physical inactivity. That
Really?
that a reasonable percentage of dementia that we see today might be linked with a physically inactive lifestyle. So it's frightening, but it's also like I always look at this from I'm kind of an eternal optimist, right? And I look at this from the really exciting perspective of, well, that what that really means is that we can modify our risks.
Yeah.
There are things that we can do to modify risk, and one of the things that we know you can do. I mean, there's a whole suite of modifiable risk factors for dementia, and one of them is increasing your physical activity levels.
I'm with you on that being incredibly exciting, because the worst feeling is not being in control of the ship. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Absolutely.
dementia as this sort of genetic disease that is the luck of the draw. Did you get it in your family? Did you not? And same with Alzheimer's, is these are powerless diseases. You feel as if there's nothing you can do, and it's just waiting for you, like lurking at
Yeah.
some age. And is that maybe, is there something that can be said about that, that's maybe not our lot just because there's a genetic history?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, so I wanna be really careful because I think there's 2 things that I wanna, make sure I say. One is that, you know, the individual is not the population, and so most of what we look at are, across populations, and so, sometimes people can start to feel kinda guilty about their own, their situation, and maybe the situation of your parents, and, maybe you could have done more, and so I wanna be really careful that, sometimes there's nothing that anyone can do. And there
Yeah.
is certainly a genetic component to Alzheimer's disease and other related dementias. And, you know, there is, in some cases, there's just nothing that can be done. On a population level, we do see that individuals on average who are more physically active have a lower risk of developing dementia, or if they do develop it, they develop it a little later. Um, there is some really important work going on right now, that is trying to kind of sort out whether individuals at increased genetic risk. So there's a specific gene that can put you at higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. It's one variant of the ApoE gene. It's called ApoE4. And if you have one of those alleles, your risk is increased. If you get two of them, your risk is increased even more. And so this work that's going on, it's a multi-center trial, trying to determine whether people with those high risk genes might benefit even more from exercise or physical activity than individuals that are at lower risk. That work's still ongoing, so there's nothing to really report here. But suffice to say that this is some of the importance of what's going on at our research universities, is that these are the kinds of studies that we need to have done to really understand how to target individuals for interventions that may be most likely to benefit, right? We need to have the results of these kinds of studies.
Yes, and that is why you are out there, you are doing it, and these are such important things because we're all doing the very best with what we know. And
Absolutely.
the more that we know, I mean, anybody who has had this disease touch their life in any way knows that they did everything they could with what they had available.
Absolutely.
But what if we knew more?
Yeah. Yeah, and I
So,
think that, I think it's a really like, it's such an exciting time in Alzheimer's research because to me, one of the most sort of promising areas is early prevention. And in addition to genetic risk, one of the really kind of amazing findings that's coming out are there are blood biomarkers that people have been able to extract and show that they are really predictive of future development of disease. And if you can, so the idea is if we can catch people very, very early in the course of disease development, that's when you have the highest likelihood of preventing further decline. Or it may be that what's happening is people are kind of coming to some of these prevention programs too late in the course of the disease
yeah.
development, and too much damage has been done in the brain. And so the earlier, and I mean, it just kind of, it underscores for me like the importance of even people in their 20s and 30s becoming more physically active and paying attention to their diet and maintaining social connections, because all those are sort of modifiable behaviors that are going to help us reduce the risk of developing these diseases. And if you can start before any damage is done, you're going to be way better off than picking it up, in your 50s or 60s, when maybe some damage is done, but you don't even notice it because you're able to compensate in a lot of different ways.
Hey guys, I've got to interrupt this incredible podcast because we have a new dress. OMG. There's a new dress style. It's so stinking cute. It's a half zip, guys. Oh man. If you haven't had one on of these on your body, they are the most flattering. So incredibly cute. They're very versatile to the fact that you can wear them running to the gym, you can wear them out on a date night. This is the summer dress that you need. And of course, you're not going to be peeing naked. We've got you on the bathroom access. So the half zip dresses come out on Friday. You got to get one on your body. Be there or be square this Friday at constantlyvariedgear.com. I want to ask you specifically, how much less are we really moving? I mean, we're talking about you're going back and studying hunter gatherer lifestyles, the way that the brain has adapted in order to sort of meet the demands of that lifestyle, and then
Mm,
where we are today. How
yeah.
much less are we moving? Is it
A
a
lot.
lot?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give you a couple different ways we can look at it. So I work mainly with a group of hunter gatherers called the Hadza. They live in northern Tanzania, and they live a lifestyle that just shares a lot of similarities with hunter gatherers in the past. They're not a model of our ancestors in any way. They're living in the modern world in many ways, but they are still on a daily basis going out and hunting and gathering for their food, without any mechanized transportation. So they're on foot all the time. We've been able to measure physical activity in a lot of different ways. One way that we do it is by looking at, well, do they meet the physical activity guidelines that our government tells us, right? So the US government recommends that we get 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity. So physical activity where you're kind of breathing hard. You couldn't, you could maybe talk and have a conversation, but maybe you couldn't sing while you were being active, that kind of intensity. Okay, so that's 150 minutes per week. On average, the Hadza individuals that we've worked with are getting about 200 to 220 minutes per day of that moderate to vigorous physical activity. So most of the Hadza individuals we work with meet US weekly guidelines in a single day. That's one way to think about it. Another way that's really popular, like, a lot of people wear, Fitbits or Apple Watches, and they track their steps. And so, in the US, we average maybe between 6 and 8,000 steps per day. That's sort of the average for people that it's a moving target as we collect better data. Hadza individuals average between 15 and 18,000 steps per day. So really, quite a different profile of physical activity. I will say, one of the things that we're really interested in is sedentary behavior and how much time we spend sitting. And Hadza individuals actually sit for about as long as we do, and so it's this sort of
Really?
really interesting uh, um, sort of puzzle to figure out about what it is about sitting and sedentary behavior that's detrimental to us here, but maybe not so much in the context of their lifestyle, and then all of the physical activity that they're doing and how that contributes to healthy outcomes.
Wow, that's walking 18,000 steps a day, but sitting just as much as we
Yeah,
are. This is
9 or 10
that's
hours a day.
wow,
Yeah.
that's really, really we're all getting the same 24. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly, right?
That's super, super interesting. When we start talking about moving less and how much less we move than, say, our closest example of what hunter-gatherer lifestyle might have been, why isn't the brain adapting to the less movement? Do you have any theories on that?
I mean, so our bodies include our physiology just never had to deal with the levels of inactivity that they're dealing with today. There was never a reason to, right, from an evolutionary perspective. And I think one of the things to remember is that, physical activity in a hunting and gathering context is not it's not purposeful exercise. None of our Hadza friends would ever say, I'm going to go for a 30-minute run, and then I'm going to go out and forage, right? That's just if I were to tell them what I do in the morning for fun, they would laugh at me, right? Like, what are you doing? And so the body, our physiology just evolved in the context of this activity. And the way that physiology works is that our bodies are kind of um, they adapt to capacity.
Mm,
They adapt to the capacity that's needed. And so, if you're giving it a lot of physical activity as part of your daily life, your cardiovascular system simply adapts to that level of need, right? Of
right.
oxygen delivery. And similarly, I think your brain adapts to that level of need in terms of being active and moving around the world and needing that navigation and memory and thinking. If you take away that activity stressor, our body's natural response is to conserve energy by reducing capacity, right? Why would we spend calories maintaining, lots of blood vessels and vascular elasticity if it's not needed? It's just a waste of energy from an evolutionary standpoint. Any calorie you burn is a calorie you need to find. So if you can save that calorie, that's a calorie you now don't need to go out and find. So there's a tremendous evolutionary pressure on us to conserve energy. And that means if you take away the stress, you will atrophy. That's just the way our bodies work. There's no way to maintain physiological capacity without a consistent stressor. And so, why hasn't the body adapted to inactivity? You'd have to come up with a good selection pressure that would make that a reasonable sort of evolutionary outcome. And right now, people who are inactive can still have and still do have lots of babies. And the consequences of inactivity don't tend to occur until later in life when you've already had your offspring. And from an evolutionary standpoint, all that matters is having babies, right? That is actually all that selection is interested in. Selection doesn't care whether you're healthy or sick or whatever, as long as you can still reproduce. So, what it would take for selection to act on inactivity is for inactivity to reduce your reproductive success, and that's not what we see for the most part, right? For the most part. And I'm thankful it doesn't. And I'm very thankful that there's, even if it does start to have an impact on reproductive physiology, we have modern medicine that has these amazing technologies that can help people through some of these issues. So, I don't want anyone to think that my sort of take home message is that inactivity should impact reproduction in some way. I hope it doesn't. I think that education and helping people understand the benefits of activity, the real benefits of activity, so that they have realistic expectations of what it'll do for you. I think that's the way to sort of alter um, our public health situation.
I couldn't agree more. And you know, this is a really good segue to something we talked about a little earlier, which was, just the messaging behind motivating exercise having been, especially to the female population, having been solely driven by aesthetics.
Yeah.
You want to look this certain way. That's why you exercise. You lift because booties are in right now. Everything that diet culture tells women is that exercise is aesthetically pleasing or so that they can eat cake.
Right.
Now we have weight loss drugs.
Right.
And there is we're having a moment where that aesthetic need isn't needing to be met so much in the gym anymore. We can
Right.
get around that. With science
Right.
has figured it out.
Right.
So I'm super concerned and I want to hear from you when it comes to these weight loss drugs and how they are hitting the mainstream. Are you worried about how much we're going to move considering the messages have been so aesthetically driven?
Um, I think it's a great question. I think my first thought is that I think that the new drugs are unbelievably amazing thing. I mean, what we're starting to see, not only in terms of weight loss, but in all the other health impacts that we're starting to see. I mean, it looks like, reducing risk of cardiovascular disease. That
Right.
there's some recent data out there suggesting that they may help reduce some risks of dementia. So I think they're amazing, and I think one of the things it tells us is that, you know, for so long, weight loss has been a matter of willpower, right? You're not able to lose weight because you don't want it enough, you're not strong enough, yada yada yada. What these drugs are showing us is that it is a brain issue. It is something happening in your neurophysiology that makes it more difficult for some people to eat less or to avoid certain foods. I tend to think that that is also rooted in our evolutionary history. There's a reason why we're attracted to certain foods. There's a reason, and there's variation in a population in terms of people who, have a harder time avoiding certain foods than others. And so I think the beauty of these drugs is that they're telling us something about that putting on weight and having trouble keeping weight off is a medical issue, right? It is a
Right.
brain issue that can be managed with medical interventions. Now, is that going to make it harder to encourage people to move? I think some of the cool research that's going on right now is looking at how do we combine these drugs with physical activity and exercise programs to help people maintain and perhaps wean off of the drug and then maintain that weight loss with an exercise program. Because exercise is really bad for losing weight, but it might actually be really good at maintenance. It might actually help people maintain lower weights once they're able to lose it. And so anyway, that's sort of my take. Is that I'm hopeful that that's where that the two sort of interact with each other, and that allows people to not stay on the drugs for their whole life, because probably no one wants to be on a medication their whole life. Um, and that exercise can help people keep the weight off. And then I think that we still, we go back to kind of how we started this conversation, which is that the messaging about physical activity and exercise needs to move away from body image and body weight and needs to be about feeling good. And it's kind of a I get it. I totally get why body image is such a goal and such a focus for exercise. What I've never understood is why, like, being happy and feeling good is not also as important. Because I don't know about you, but, like, in my life, I want to feel good and be happy throughout the day, and just have a good feeling of well-being. And that's one of the things that exercise can help do for people. And so, I think the more messaging that we have around that, maybe it'll make it easier to message about that when we have drugs that can help people with the weight loss problem and not make exercise so frustrating because it's not working.
Right.
but show people that exercise is actually really good for something else that you want, which is just to feel good about yourself and be happy.
Yes. Wouldn't that be an amazing way to separate those two things and equate exercise with good feelings, which
Yeah,
is really all it's ever been,
right.
and take that pressure of, I do this to look good and I do this for, and take that pressure away. And not only that, but, you brought up a really good point about, being comfortable in your exercise and having it be a good experience. A lot of times, people are not there with their exercise because they're so uncomfortable in their own body that they're
Yeah.
not getting that feeling of happiness. They're getting an overwhelming feeling of like anxiety,
Yeah.
And so yeah, separating those out. I was not thinking of it that you are the eternal optimist. Wow.
Well,
Wow.
I mean, I just think that, you know, it's this we have at our disposal a behavior that can really change your life. And it can be basically free, right? I mean, for most people, especially people who aren't getting a lot of activity, like just putting on some shoes and walking outside will give you a bigger bang for your buck than trying to get to the gym and learn how to
Yes.
lift weights and spend a lot of money. A brisk walk is as good as pretty much anything, especially like early in your sort of your exercise life. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic because it's not, the hurdle shouldn't be so great. It's not a huge hurdle to get up and move a little bit. And the benefits are just like they're just astounding. And so I really hope people take advantage of this free, easy behavior, you know?
Yes, a free and easy, something we've never equated the gym with. The
Right,
most complicated, it has to be the most complicated, it
right.
has to be the most expensive, and you have to do like, I don't know, maybe 9 years worth of research before you can start. Because those,
Yeah,
I mean,
and then
that's
get
how it,
into a contract that takes 9 years to get out. But,
and 13 lawyers and,
right, exactly. But,
but
I think and it may be, I use a slide sometimes that's like it basically it's a guy on a treadmill, but the treadmill kinda looks like a mouse running wheel. And I use it to kind of think about, um is going to the gym really the best use of your exercise time? Because and I'm not saying like strength training and resistance training is really important. And if going to the gym makes you happy, by all means do it. But we've got really nice research that exercising in green spaces can actually increase or enhance the mental health benefits of physical activity relative to exercising indoors or in more urban environments. And so, I think there are real benefits to getting outside. There are constraints on getting outside. I totally get that. And that's sort of another area that I often talk about is, you know, we put a lot on individuals to make decisions for themselves. And by doing that, we take some of the pressure off of our infrastructure and our sort of city and state and federal governments on what they should and can be doing to make it easier for people to get access to exercise. And I know, and I live in Los Angeles, and I know there are places in Los Angeles where going outside to exercise is just not feasible. It's not safe. It's too polluted. And so in those cases, by all means, a gym is a great option. But I think it's incumbent on all of us to make it so that everyone has access to safe and healthy, affordable exercise options.
oh, that's the dream, isn't
It
it? That
shouldn't just
is the
be
dream.
your individual, you are solely responsible for that, right?
So, I want to talk a little bit about that in simplifying exercise for a second, because I I know myself. I have gotten caught up in the if it's not going to be the best workout, it's not worth doing.
Right.
Never mind. If I'm a little bit sick, never mind. If the sun's in my eyes, well, it's not going to be perfect. And
Right.
I've heard from so many women who have like sort of perfectionist tendencies, or that's how they're labeling it. And they're like, I just get so stuck with, if I can't do it 100%, then I'm like, what's the point in doing it at all? And I've
Right.
heard you give some really, really impressive statistics about the gains that happen from the I'm going to do nothing to I'm going to do a little something. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, for pretty much every health outcome that you can measure, the biggest bang for your buck comes from couch potato to doing a little bit. And that little bit can be like 10 minutes a day. All of the risk reduction curves are very, very steep to begin with, and then they start to level off as you get more and more exercise. So,
Mhm.
you still generally get benefits at really high volumes for different diseases, but the incremental benefit is lower. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest bang for your buck is just getting off the couch. And I'll say this, and I'll ask you the question, have are when you if you're feeling like I don't want to do this today because of whatever reason, but you end up making yourself do it. Can you think of times where you've regretted it afterwards?
Not a one.
So I mean, I think that's what I think. Like when I'm in bed in the morning and it's cold and it's dark out and I don't want to get up and I don't want to go for a run. But then I think like when was the last time I did get up and run and said like, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Pretty much never. I can't think of a time. And so, I it's very rare that I hear people regret the workout that they did. That's the bottom
Even
line.
on the shittiest, suckiest day, I still go, well, I was here.
Yeah.
So
Sure. And
that's
there's something,
something.
like there's like two psychological components to improving your mental health from exercise. One I think is like, very ancient, these neurochemicals that I was talking about earlier, endorphins, endocannabinoids, and dopamine. But then there's this like self-efficacy component, which is really, feeling good about what you did because you did it, right? It's like it's a sort of a higher order cognition element to exercise. Sometimes that can be just like I didn't want to do it, but I made myself get out the door, and I feel good because I did that. Sometimes it's actually like intensity related. We know that some of these neurochemicals don't actually get upregulated at really high exercise intensities.
Hmm.
But you do tend to feel really good after you're done with like a high intensity interval workout or something like that. That's likely also some self-efficacy, like, wow, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I just ran that fast, or I just lifted that weight, or whatever it was. So I think self-efficacy is a really important component because we're humans, because we have higher order cognition. We can meta analyze what we just did, and that can make us feel good that if you knew that you didn't want to do it and you did it anyway, that should make you feel good. I mean, geez, that's like an
Absolutely.
amazing accomplishment. You just convinced yourself to do something you didn't want to do because you cared enough about your health to do it.
It's like a two-faced gain too, because not only do you analyze the things you do, but you really analyze the things you don't do.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
this is an issue, right? I mean, it's like I run into this all the time because I love talking about exercise because I enjoy doing research in it. I enjoy doing it myself, so I'm a little bit biased in that way. But I'm also very cognizant that like there is a shame component to all of this that is, it's real. And my goal is never to blame or shame people who don't don't enjoy it. It's to help people find a way to move their bodies so that they do enjoy it. There's nothing shameful about not enjoying running. There's nothing shameful about not enjoying going into the gym, right? That's just, you just haven't found the thing you like to do yet. And so my goal is to help people find that thing that they like to do. So I think it's important to be conscious. Like we're having a great discussion about all the benefits of exercise, but I totally get it that there is a large, large segment of the population that just has not found exercise that they enjoy yet. And they can feel a lot of shame because we're sitting here touting all of the benefits, and you're sitting there listening thinking, man, I have to do this, but I don't want to. And so, it's just a matter of like, what can you try? And, you know, I mean, I think about this because I've like battled insomnia in my life, right? And so one of the take home messages I got from learning how to sort of get over sleep problems was that I was always really resistant to trying different things because I was always worried about like, it's going to have an even worse effect on my sleep. And then I realized, like, I'm already getting bad sleep. What's the worst thing that's gonna happen? I'm gonna get a bad night of sleep? Like, that's ridiculous. And so try it, right? So that's the way I kinda think about exercise too for people who aren't engaged. It's like, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen if you try a different, if you try pickleball, or if you try swimming, or if you try weightlifting and you've never, like, what the worst thing that happens is you don't enjoy it and you don't do it again.
Hey guys, happy May. We have a brand new challenge for you. Minutes in May is our newest donation unlocker. We've got about $40,000 of leggings and bras that we want to donate. And all you have to do is log your active minutes. So if you are a runner, if you are a spin girl, if you are lifting, if you are a walker, any active minutes that you have in May, we are going to all log together. We are going to combine them. And as we collect minutes, CVG donates. So our first major milestone is 50,000 minutes. You want to be in this. There are giveaways. It's an amazing cause. Fitness Programming by CVG is our Facebook group. Get in there and log your minutes today. We'll keep you moving in May and we'll donate along the way. I love this, and I love the you haven't found it yet, because we are so ingrained in that fitness happens on a treadmill in a gym, like during opening hours there's an instructor. Like, that is not fitness in the history of the human body. That
Right,
has not been how we have moved.
right,
And thinking about, like, well, if I don't like going to the gym under the fluorescent lights with the music pumping and a whole bunch of machines, if I don't like that, then I don't like exercise. Is
right.
That's wild.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I sometimes it's shocking to me that people do like that. No offense to anyone who does, but I mean, like, I use a treadmill when I'm in a hotel or something if that's all I can do, but man, I can't get myself excited about that on a daily basis. More power to you if you can, but yeah, I mean, why, that's why I say, like, getting out the door and going for a walk is so amazing, because that's what we've been doing for, almost 7 million years. And there's a reason why it's such a beneficial behavior to us, and there's a reason why it makes you feel good, and you know what, do it with someone that you enjoy being with, and you're going to even have a better time. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to make it too complicated. It really doesn't have to be that complicated. It can be as simple as, you know, maybe try walking fast enough so, you're a little out of breath. Maybe you have a little bit of trouble talking. And then you're doing it right.
Perfect. Okay, you're gonna be mad at me because my next I have to
Not
ask
possible. I
this
can't be
because,
mad.
well, listen, we just went through all of the ways in which we can make accessible exercise to everyone and we can not overcomplicate it. And now I'm going to ask a question that overcomplicates it, because I want to know, when we speak about specific brain health benefits, and I know you do a lot of work specialized in dementia and the hippocampus.
Hippocampus. Yep.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah.
okay, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Um, Now, as far as brain health goes, the optimal, come on, we're going to use air bunnies so we don't like
Mhm.
misquote everything we just said. But is there a better way? Is there a better mousetrap if we're thinking about, I want to increase my brain health? Should we be doing HIIT classes? Should we be lifting? Is it low intensity? Like, what's happening?
So good questions. And I wish I had a really clear answer for you. Um, I One thing I fall back on, you're going to find this maybe not too exciting, but it is sort of where I come down, which is like, the best exercise is the exercise you'll do. And so,
Let's go.
I'm not, I would never sit here and say, hey, we don't know, because the studies that have actually compared different exercise regimes are really sort of very small and not really all well done so far. So I tend to just think, like, the best exercise is the one that you're going to stick with. I know that's kind of boring, but it's true. Now, I will say, like, some of the work that we've been really intrigued by, and that we've been a part of, by taking an evolutionary perspective, we've thought a lot about, again, like, why is physical activity linked to the brain? We think it has something to do with the fact that across our evolutionary history, when you were physically active, you were also cognitively active. So you were never just mindlessly moving. You were moving while you were thinking, while you were making decisions, while you were navigating, while you were using memory. So we have done some work on, trying to enhance the benefits of physical activity by adding in cognitive uh, tasks. And we
Hmm.
found some interesting results. Like, we found actually that you can get bigger cognitive gains by combining physical activity and cognitive challenge in the same bout. What does that mean? I mean, the way we've tested it has been like in the lab. We've developed very specific tasks to do while you're exercising that aren't really like publicly available. But spatial navigation is probably a key one. So that's why, like, being outside might offer some other benefits potentially than working out on a treadmill. Because on a treadmill, what do you do, right? What are you thinking?
You're
You're you're
co-
you're not doing a lot of hard thought. Maybe you're watching TV or something. I don't know, or you're listening to a great podcast, right? That may be a good way to challenge your brain. But being outside, you're paying attention to the world around you. You're thinking about your route. You're maybe having to navigate a new route every once in a while. So I think there's a potential for that to enhance the benefits of exercise. This is, again, still really early in the research phases, so I can't give you sort of definitive um, results on those kinds of things. But I think there's promise there that adding in cognitive challenges, and that might, whenever I give talks on this, people ask me, well, what about tennis? What about soccer? What about these sports that? And I think there's a lot of potential there, that some of the sort of team sports or individual sports that require you to be cognitively engaged while you're, being active, they could actually have some really big benefits. So I think those are going to be the next research steps for people, is to really, and our lab included, to figure out, can we enhance the benefits of exercise through cognitive challenge.
That's such a cool concept. I love that, and I can't say how opposite it is to how I have always used exercise, which is like, okay, you turn off now.
But you think
All
you're
the
turning,
overthinking
I
and
mean, but I don't know what you do for sort of most of your exercise, but we often think we're turning. Like, when I go for a run, there's a part of me that thinks I'm turning off my brain, but I'm not, right? I mean, I'm actually, like, I'm managing a lot of motor systems. First of all, I'm having to
true.
maintain balance while I'm hopping up and down on one leg, which is a challenging task, but I'm doing it. And at the same time, I am paying attention to my surroundings, even though I kind of feel like I'm blanking out. I know where I am. I'm navigating my route. I'm making decisions about when to cross a street and when not to. I'm doing stuff. Maybe it's in the kind of happening in what I think is the background, but if you were to go out on a foraging bout with one of our Hadza friends and ask them what they were thinking about, they wouldn't say, "Well, I'm thinking about when was the last time I saw this tree flowering, and what is that track down there, and where am I headed, and where." That's all going on. It's not necessarily what they would tell you they're thinking about. So, I think um, we can sort of narrow those tasks by making, by, like, sitting on an exercise bike or something like that, which, again, if that's what you like to do, awesome, keep doing it. But maybe there's a way to enhance the cognitive challenge of that, with a game or something like that, that could actually, maybe make the brain benefits even better.
That's oh, you know what? You're so right. I have a notebook in my garage gym because this has happened to me so many times that every single time I'm working out, I have a great idea.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I have this idea. I'll remember it after my workout. And I never do. So I have a notebook in there that says ideas and they
Awesome.
always come to me. But when I don't feel like I'm thinking
Yeah. No,
hard about, huh,
yeah. And there's been some work on that. So there was a study out of from a Stanford group that actually tried to measure creativity with and without physical activity. And the physical activity was just taking a walk. And they were able to demonstrate through some psychological scales of creativity that that walking does actually enhance creativity, that, these
Wow.
ideas are going to come up. And there's, this goes back to, Thoreau and and all of these like old philosophers who, what did they do? They walked a lot. That's when a lot of their ideas came to them. And there's something about movement that stimulates thinking in creative ways. And it may not be totally conscious, but I mean, I do it, right. I mean, if I'm writing or doing some work and I hit something tough, what do I do? Me and my dog go for a walk,
Yeah.
and
It's a
that usually
natural
wakes them up.
response.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think it's
That is
important.
so true. Um, I wanna ask you a little bit about the other 2 aspects that we know are really important to brain health, which is diet and social connections.
Yeah.
And I know that you said that we are sort of biohacking some ways in which we might think, adding some stimulus to exercise could like enhance cognitive benefits. And I'm wondering about working out with somebody.
Yeah.
Do you think that that is a way, like a bigger bang for your buck when it comes to brain health?
It could be. I think that there is work that's ongoing. I haven't seen work on the sort of cognition front. There is work that suggests that exercising in groups can enhance the mental health benefits of exercise. And I don't think anyone would be shocked at that. um, but I think, we are a social species. I mean, that's who we are. It's what we do. It's what we crave. It's what we need. We need social connection. And, lacking social connection, feelings of loneliness are all linked with negative brain health and overall negative health outcomes. Um, and so, if it's just that combining activity with a group that you like to be around is just additively giving you both of those sort of features, that's great. Maybe it's synergistic. That would be the cool thing that we don't know. Like maybe something about putting those together actually gives you a bigger bang than just adding the benefits of both together. That we don't know. But even if it's just additive, it's a great thing to do. And from a public health standpoint, we also know that working out in groups gives people accountability. It makes it
Yeah.
more likely that they're going to show up for an exercise round. So it can just sort of improve your consistency in your exercise habit. So yeah, I'm all for it. I say that I don't actually like to run in groups. I like to run alone just because of like I like to think and go off in my brain and not have to talk to someone. But I think it can be a really nice you know um, addition to someone's exercise routine.
Absolutely. On the diet side, is there a food you want? All right, you can snap your fingers. Everybody on earth can take a food, it can take a supplement, can eat a certain food every day. What do you think is most important for brain health?
I mean, so for brain health, I think I hate to sound boring, but it's really like a whole food diet. I don't think there's a magic food.
Oh,
I think
guys,
eating
it
right. I mean, it's just going to be a broken record, right? But eating processed foods is probably not the best thing that we're doing for ourselves. We do know there's a some of the diets, Mediterranean diet has been shown to have good cognitive benefits. There's a diet called the Mind diet that's a modification of the DASH diet that has been shown to have brain health benefits. And there's some, if your listeners are interested, there's some great sort of cookbooks out there that provide. There are great Mind diet books out there that these are rigorously tested diets. So I think that's again, it's sort of like exercise, you got to find what you're willing to eat consistently,
right.
because anything that is not enjoyable, it's going to be short lived in your life. And so, finding ways to make a whole food diet something that you love, that's the key. And I think that's going to be different for different people. It's different in different cultures. So yeah, but I mean, I think the best thing that we can do is avoid highly processed foods, unfortunately, even though they're delicious. They're delicious for a reason. Like that, what has been, it's kind of a brilliant strategy, obviously, is to make food that is so amazingly delicious that people are going to buy it over and over again. And the processed
This
food.
kind of strategy.
Totally. Well, it is what it is, right? I mean, I don't, it's not good for us. I don't necessarily think that when processed foods were developed, it was developed like knowing that they was going to kill us. But they sort of tack on to or piggyback evolutionary mechanisms that drive our hunger and desire for different foods, right? They make sort of either sweet or salty or fatty foods really easy to get, really easy to digest, and you eat them faster than your hunger hormones can catch up, so you're willing to eat more and more of it before you realize that you're full. And that's good for business and it's really bad for us. And so I think just is I mean, life is about moderation. You know, I love processed foods. I'll still eat them, but I certainly won't make that my main dietary component. Right. So I think finding ways to reduce or limit. Hate to be a boring broken record. I can't give you, eat this supplement and you will stave off dementia. It's kind of the long game, right? Everybody has to play the long game, and it's those daily decisions that you make that add up over time to either benefit your health or negatively impact your health.
Listen, if there was one thing, okay, first of all, anybody who touts that there is a magic pill, they're just selling it. That's why.
Right. No, and
So,
I read this great quote from a colleague of mine named Ted Garland. There was an article that was being written about the exercise pill, and can we make a pill that gives you all the benefits of exercise without getting exercise? And what he said was, the real question is, can we make a pill that gets people to exercise? Because that would be the magic pill. And that's the way I think of it, is like, the magic pill is, how do you get people to consistently do these behaviors? And if we're going to invest in like a pharmaceutical to do that, I think it should be one that gets people to exercise. I think that would have the biggest impact on society that we could find.
I mean, if we're gonna do it, let's just do it,
Right. Right. I agree.
Lastly, sleep is such an important component of brain health, and there's been some really shocking research that has come forth about the lack of sleep that some of us, and you said yourself you battled with insomnia. It's a very stressful, weird wheel that you get on of like, oh my god, this is so bad for me, but then you stress about how bad it for. And so, and I've been in this, and I we know sleep is important. So many of us will sacrifice sleep for exercise.
Yeah.
And I want to get your take on that practice. If the only time we have to exercise is 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
is that what we should be doing? Should we be sacrificing sleep for exercise? I mean, I know that's a really hard
It's
question.
hard. But I mean, I'm with you. Like I have a 2.5-year-old. Like the only time I can exercise is literally at 5 a.m.
Right.
And so, yeah, I get you. Um, there are mixed results out there about whether you can counteract the negative effects of low sleep with exercise. My take on it is the best you can do is maybe you'll sort of make everything neutral. So
Okay.
you won't get all the benefits, but you won't get all the bad sides. I hate to be boring, but like my solution has been honestly to go to bed earlier. At you know Whatever. I hate to have that answer, but trying to hit 7 hours of sleep is a really good idea in the long run. I think sleep is I'm like deep in this world because of the problems that I've had with insomnia and sleep, and so I'm really familiar with the different solutions that are out there. And so I will just say, because I will, whenever I talk to people about it, I like to at least make a plug for the most effective sleep treatment out there, which is something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And that's the magic pill. I mean, that actually will change your life. You don't have to take a pill. You can actually, get someone to help you get into you know the healthy window of sleep times.
Right.
um you know in the short run, is it better to have a little less sleep and get more exercise? I think the jury is out. I'd be really careful with reducing sleep. I think it can have some real long term, negative health impacts. I'd much rather have people go to bed a little earlier.
I don't know about you, but anytime that I've been stuck in this wheel, if and it's not right away, initially it doesn't really help, but like a month in, consistent exercise leads me to
Great
sleep better.
strategy. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. It's part
exercise.
of my sleep hygiene. Like,
Totally, totally, and, I mean, exercise is a trigger for our circadian rhythms. It's one of the things that our body uses to set our circadian rhythm and let our bodies know when it's time to be wakeful and when it's time to start getting tired and fall asleep. Exercise is one of those behaviors that helps our body maintain that rhythm, and so, yeah, I think it's one of the if it is one of those things that you'll be told if you're having sleep problems, trying to maintain a regular exercise habit is likely to help. It is one of those aspects of sleep hygiene that is essential. I mean, exercise is the magic pill. I hate to be like that, but it really is. It's like one of those things that benefits every part of our physiological system. So
there's not much else that is free and also gives you these, incredible massive benefits when it comes to your mood, your mental health, your every function, every organ in your body, the way it functions, your circadian rhythms. Like, I don't know that anything else has this much bang for a buck, but we have so much trouble
I know.
trying to convince people of its importance. Do you have any ideas, any revolutionary kind of things that you think might help to get that general population out there just for a walk today?
Well, I mean, I think so. I'll say one thing. I kind of disagree with you. I think that if you walked outside and asked 100 people right now whether they thought that exercise was good for health, I would imagine that all of them would say yes. So I don't think
It's
it's
true.
that people don't know. I think it's that we have, again, I'm an evolutionary biologist. I think we have an evolved drive to conserve energy. And if you don't have to be physically active, our body's natural state is to be resting. And what we've done in modern society is we have taken away the need to be active to do most things in life, right? In most
Mhm.
places, at least in the US where you live, you're able to either get in a car or get on a train or get on a bus to get where you need to go. You're able to use an elevator or an escalator to get up, and down different floors. You go to a grocery store and you don't need to move around that much to find your food. It's movement is really removed from most aspects of our lives. And so we then fall back on what we evolved to do when we're not moving, which is to sit and rest.
Right.
And so that's not surprising. And it's not surprising in any way that we're motivated to save energy and rest. And so, yeah, I mean, that's why I say, and I said earlier, it's we can't just make it about the individual having to decide, because that is a very big, it's like willpower and diet.
Yeah.
It's just too big of a hurdle on a
Mhm.
societal level. And so the societal solution, which we have to have, because chronic disease is going to smother our health system as we get this sort of aging population that starts to transition into lots of chronic diseases that cost us a lot of money. On a societal level, it's figuring out ways to alter our infrastructure to encourage movement, and whether that's in communities where there is not a lot of safe space to be active, there aren't sidewalks, or it's close to freeways in LA, it's heavily polluted. We need to find ways to alter the landscape so that people can have safe places and safe spaces to move their bodies. And then we need to figure out ways in the rest of our infrastructure to encourage movement, whether it's maybe parking lots other than for people that have mobility impairments, but maybe a lot of the parking needs to be much further away from where we want to go. I don't know what that solution looks like, but that's what we need people thinking about: is how do we engineer our cities and our landscapes to encourage movement rather than to encourage inactivity.
Absolutely. And I think as an optimist myself, I think we are on a good track. I think that fitness watches have made people much more aware of their inactivity than they were prior. And I think there is a big motivator for parking a little further away or taking the stairs when you're real close to your
Yeah, for
steps.
sure.
And
I'm all
so
about it. I love wearables. I think that they can be such huge motivators for people.
yeah, maybe technology has a little a piece to play. I mean, it's a huge reason why we sit, but it's also maybe it has a piece to play in why we'll move.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to change a behavior that you're not tracking and you're not
Yeah.
keeping an eye on. Like, just like with food, right? I mean, everyone overestimates how or underestimates how many calories they're eating, but if you actually start tracking it, you'll know, right? Same thing with movement. Everyone overestimates how much movement we get. It's really funny. I work with a data set that's sort of a nationally representative data set in the US, that for a long time asked people how much exercise they got. And, it didn't look too bad when people self reported how active they were. And then they added fitness trackers to their study for a while. And it came out that people were off by probably 40 minutes a day, 30 minutes a
Oh
day
boy.
in how much activity they actually got, right? So we self report being much better at these behaviors than we actually are. So tracking it is the way, right? Tracking it. If you want to change it, you've got to track it and measure it.
I think that's great advice. This has been so eye-opening. I need to go get in and work out right now. I know that, we have discussed that there are these difficulties in the motivation, but truly the benefits are so incredible. And I'm really glad that you are here today to shine some light on the science behind this because it's really interesting.
Well, thanks so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully, people get something out of it. And they one of the big take homes is find something you love to do and do it.
Find something you love to do and do it. Can you give our listeners where they can hear more from you? Where can they connect with you? What are you doing right now that we want because we want to follow?
Well, I'm mostly an academic researcher, so, but I'm happy. My email address is available out there. You can go. I have a website at the University of Southern California that at least keeps a little, mostly up to date on some of our research findings, and so that's something to keep an eye on. And then, yeah, I'm actually working on a book right now, but that won't be out for a while, but I'll keep you updated. So when that comes out, you can let people know, and that would be another place where hopefully I'm trying to translate things into more popular kind of ideas instead of just in academic articles. So,
Oh, you're doing the work. You're doing the work, and it is so important and appreciated. So I appreciate you.
oh, thank you so much. Thank you very
It
much. That's really
it
nice.
was wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.